joining us today. I'm Scott Lyon, SBAM's Senior VP, and I'm happy to host this webinar on leading and self-management through adverse and ambiguous times. I don't know that I have ever seen in my time in business more adversity, more ambiguity coming out of every nook and cranny that you can possibly think about. The rules seem to change on a daily basis. That is, even if you can figure out what the rules are. And speaking of rules, let me just jump in and tell you that if you're on this webinar today, it's because you're either on our board of directors, a member of our leadership council, one of our top independent insurance agents, or a partner to one of our products and services that we make available to our members, or you're an attendee at one of our owner-to-owner events. That's a long way of saying that your participation with SBAM is important to us, and that's why we're bringing you this special webinar today. Right at the moment, you're all muted, but that doesn't mean that you're silenced. With our 100 or so registrants, it would be chaos if we didn't have you muted, but you can ask a question. You can do that through the SBAM at sbam.org website, and Steve has graciously offered to help us with any questions that come up along the way. We are recording this and we'll post to our website as well. Attached to that post, Steve has generously offered an ebook and a copy of his latest book, In Defense of Adversity, and a copy of over 300 insights from people he interviewed for that book. Now let me introduce Steve Gavatorta. A disclaimer for all of those that know me: I've known Steve for over 35 years. We went to college together, played football together, and or I guess we still are, fraternity brothers. That's why Steve was on my radar. I read his last book, and I thought it was perfect for him to share with us what he knows about working your way through adverse and ambiguous times. The current state of mind for a lot of our members, we're confused, we're afraid of what the future might look like. We're forced with making decisions that we might not want to make, might not be equipped to make in some cases, but are being forced to make. So Steve specializes in working with business leaders to identify, develop, and exceed their goals. He has, over the years, coached and trained individuals for high performers across industries and across all sizes of business, from entrepreneurs to Fortune 500. He is the author of 2 books. He's a small business owner himself, and I knew that he grew up in a small business that faced some adversity back when we were still in college. So he gets it. He knows where you're at. He knows where you're coming from. And without further ado, let me give you Steve Gavatorta. Go ahead, Steve. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for a great introduction, and I'm honored to be here for multiple reasons. First, this topic, even before this crazy pandemic was going on, I always state to my customers, we are in a fast-paced, high-tech, ever-evolving world. The speed of change, adversity is striking us harder and faster than ever. The need to make decisions, the time frame's getting shorter, oftentimes forcing us to make decisions or have to move quicker than we may normally want to be most successful. So a lot of what we're going to talk about in this hour-long webinar is not only relevant to everything that's going on now with this pandemic, crazy pandemic, but anything tied to adversity, dealing with change, dealing with problem solving, the need to think out of the box again in these crazy world. Hopefully it's going to provide you with some insights and skill sets, not only for the immediate need, but also saying you provide with skills, insights, wisdom, and inspiration for down the road as well too. I was going to say I'm honored to be on this call for that reason. And also, I said 2 wonderful years. I'm not sure if someone remembers, but 2 wonderful years in Michigan. Myself, I was in Detroit for 2 years, working for consumer packaging division, calling on a lot of retailers in New York, in the Detroit metro area, Farmer Jack, Meyer, Perry Drug, Arbor Drug. So I have some very fond memories of my 2 years in Detroit, and so I'm honored from that perspective as well too. And as Scott said, I am a small business owner now. I spent 16 years in corporate America, or I'm sorry, 21 years in corporate America. But the last 16 years, I've been a small business owner. And as Scott said, I come from a family of small business owners as well too. So let's get started on this topic, leading and self-managing through adverse and ambiguous times. And before I go, Scott did say, if you have any questions or anything, hit your website thereafter, and I'll be happy to answer those questions as we complete this webinar. So to kick off this webinar, I want to talk about almost most importantly, the perception of adversity and how our perception can drive our success in dealing effectively with it when it does indeed happen. And I want to make a quote from a book called Lincoln on Leadership, a fantastic book on leadership. If any of you are interested in purchasing a book on leadership, I'd highly recommend it. But it really speaks to Abraham Lincoln's view of adversity, his perception of adversity, and 2 parts to that, that he looked at adversity, he accepted that adversity was a part of life. Adversity, change, problems were a part of life. And when it happened, it didn't surprise him. And the second part of that was he acknowledged that times of adversity, times of change, time of difficulties were an opportunity for him to grow and evolve and transform into a better person. And really, if anyone knows of Lincoln's background, he faced a great deal of obstacles through his entire life. But most importantly, he leveraged those obstacles as stepping stones to help him ultimately become possibly human beings. So he accepted adversity was meant to be, or was going to happen, that acknowledged that it was meant to be to help him grow. So I just quoted about a journalist named Horace Greeley, who Lincoln was often at odds with. So this quote was stated about Lincoln after his death. And it goes like this: he was not born king of men, but a child of the common people, who made himself a great persuader, therefore a leader by dint of firm resolve and dogged perseverance. He was open to all impressions and influences, and gladly profited by the teaching of events and circumstances, no matter how adverse or unwelcome. There's probably no year in his life when he was not a wiser, cooler, and better man than he had been the year preceding. And I wanted to share this for several reasons. One, to once again speak to the percent of adversity. Number 2, my goal today is to help you see things such as adversity or what we're going through today with a positive perception. I don't want this to come across flippant. We're dealing with some serious things, difficult times, life changing.
Steve,
yes.
It's breaking out the same way it was the last time.
Oh, man.
I wonder if, because when you share your screen, I don't think the webinar even shows our videos. So I wonder if you just called in and then just shared your screen. That way the audio isn't going through the internet, it's going through your cell phone.
Okay, so I'll have to silence my, I'm gonna have to silence the audio portion.
Yep, and then call in with your cell phone.
I'm sorry, was I muted there?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
So do you have the number?
Yeah, hold on.
Okay, so go ahead and call in and then just mute your computer. Let's see how that goes.
Okay, man, this is, is it doing it the whole time?
No, it started right away, and so I gave it a few minutes, and then it went in and out probably 5 or 6 different times just during that short period.
I looked over, I saw you go like that.
I know, I was kind of trying, but I mean, it's just us, and we can edit this part out, so we can keep Scott's intro.
Okay.
And then just start where you start. So we can click that
start
part.
by talking about, okay, perfect.
Yeah, just start at the beginning. Yeah.
1 second, stay on there 1 second. Now, will I have to get out and back in again?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, so let me get this number, 301 715 8.
I can text it to you if that's easier.
Make sure this is okay. Okay. Should have enough juice. Can you hear me still?
Yeah.
Okay, can you edit out if we do a test now?
Yes.
Okay, let's try this. Let me get back in here. Let me mute myself. Well, let me get online. So 301 715 8592.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your ID followed by pound.
93666 194.
You entered 9.
My fault. I thought you were done.
Sorry.
That's okay. 301 715 8592.
There's like 10 digits.
Okay. I see it. The 936. I got you. Okay, I got you. Okay, I got you.
You have not entered any. Enter your participant ID followed by pound. Otherwise, just press pound to continue.
Just hit pound.
Okay.
You have joined the meeting as an attendee and will be muted throughout the meeting. This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, so I allowed you to talk.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Is it clear?
it is.
Okay, good, good. Did we share screen yet?
Yes.
Okay, so let me make sure. Okay, so you can see the screen.
Yes, and there's no delay, so this should work. So let's give this a try. Go ahead and start whenever you're ready, and we'll just edit out, that portion where we just restarted.
Okay, so start from the beginning.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. Thanks so much for the introduction, Scott. I'm very honored and happy to be here to talk about a really important topic, leading and self-managing through adverse and ambiguous times. I always say, even before this crazy pandemic was happening, that we are in a fast-paced, high-tech, ever-evolving world. Change, adversity is hitting us harder and faster than ever. Our need to make decisions and make wise decisions is getting shorter and shorter, often not leaving us the time we need to function at our optimal level. So what we're going to talk about today are some skills, insights, hopefully inspiration, and tools you can use to not only help you survive this crazy pandemic we're going through, but thrive in it and thereafter as well, too. So to help you with what you're dealing with now, but provide you with a foundation for down the road when we're through this as well, too. I'm also honored to be here for 2 other reasons. I spent 2 wonderful years in my corporate life. I spent 21 years in corporate America, two of those in the Detroit metro marketplace, calling on various retailers such as Farmer Jack, F&M, Meyer, Perry Drug, Arbor Drug. So I have a lot of fond memories of my time, my 2 years in Michigan. So I'm honored to be here for that. And as Scott mentioned, I'm honored to be here as a small business owner. I've owned my business for 16 years, and to come from a family of small business owners, entrepreneurs as well, too. My father owned a produce market, and that's where I learned probably more in my life than I even learned in college, where I went with Scott. So I'm honored to be here for that reason as well, too. And as we go through this, feel free to capture any questions you have. And as Scott said, shoot to the SBAM site. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. We're going to cover a lot of information here in a very short period. I want to make sure you're very comfortable with what I'm speaking to, because once again, this is not fluff. We're going to give you some practical skills, not only to help you now as we're going through this crazy pandemic, but also down the road as well, too. So let's dig into this whole topic of leading and self-managing through adverse and ambiguous times. I want to kick off talking about a quote from a great leader. I'm sure you all know of this great leader named Abraham Lincoln. And what I want to talk about is a quote that speaks to his perception of adversity and how he looked at adversity as an opportunity to grow, evolve, and transform. Used the adversity he faced in his life, which was a large amount, to be leveraged as stepping stones to help him ultimately become one of our greatest presidents, if not our greatest president ever. This quote is from a journalist named Horace Greeley, and it's a book called Lincoln on Leadership. Greeley and Lincoln were oftentimes at odds, and Greeley actually made this quote after Lincoln's assassination. And it goes something like this: "He was not born king of men, but a child of the common people, who made himself a great persuader, therefore a leader by dint of firm resolve and dogged perseverance. He was open to all impressions and influences and gladly profited by the teaching of events and circumstances, no matter how adverse or unwelcome. There was probably no year in his life when he was not a wiser, cooler, and better man than he had been the year preceding." So essentially, this speaks to two parts about how Abraham Lincoln viewed adversity. His perception of it was he accepted that adversity happens in life, and he acknowledged that these times of adversity, change, problems, were opportunities to help him grow and become stronger, and he leveraged those to his advantage. So the reason I'm sharing this quote with you is several reasons. One is to hopefully provide you with a positive perception of those things happening now. I don't want to sound flippant. What we're going through is very difficult for all of us, but having a positive perception is a key element in helping us succeed during these times as well, too. And also help you think about being, I like to think it as being more Lincoln-like. I know I try to aspire to what was said about Lincoln here, and I hope what you're going to learn today can help you as well, too. In addition, to help you do three things: assertively face the obstacles we're going through, hopefully successfully overcome these obstacles, these difficult times, and at the least, learn valuable lessons so we can grow, transform, and evolve through this and down the road as well, too. So let's dig into this content we're going to discuss today, the overarching objectives and benefits of this program. The overarching benefit and objective is this: to optimize your performance, your decision-making, your ability to effectively solve problems during any ambiguous and adverse times, not only in the business world, but personally as well, too, so personally and professionally. So 4 key areas we're going to cover today. First being, we're going to help you learn a little bit about something called emotional intelligence and its critical importance in building resilience and perseverance in the face of obstacles or in the face of uncomfortable times like we're all going through now. Also, discover what happens in the brain during adverse times and how to ensure when we're going through these times, we're thinking, we're acting, we're making decisions based off of rational thought process rather than emotional thought process. And this isn't just again, a flippant comment. There's brain science, there's brain functionality that validates our need to think rationally, think clearly during such times. Next is to really pinpoint personal triggers and then responses to adversity so you can better manage through these times. So we're going to tie in a little behavioral assessment that helps you personalize some of these learnings, to help you become more astute, more aware of yourself and how those things that may trigger you in a non-productive response and how that may come across, so you can avoid falling into negative emotional traps that can occur during uncertain, unprecedented times like now. And then lastly, gain any practical real-world skills, insights to help you grow, learn, and provide you with a foundation to leverage adversity to your advantage. So once again, we're not only successfully facing it, we're overcoming it and learning valuable lessons, not just for what we're going through now, but afterwards as well too, a long-term sustainable, retention-based insights for today. So let's get into this. The first thing I wanted to talk about was emotional intelligence. And I make the statement, whether you're a leader, a parent, a spouse, any successful person has what I call high emotional intelligence. We all know what IQ is, your intellect, your smarts, how smart you are, your IQ. But EQ is how astute we are in our emotional being as well. So it's kind of a different little twist on that. I'm sure you all know a lot of very, very intelligent people who struggle with anger or can't communicate effectively, or anger or irritate people around them. They can be the smartest person in the world, but if they're not effective at managing their own emotions, or they're not aware of how their emotions play in front of others, if they're not effective in engaging, collaborating, or leading others, they're not going to be successful. So you can be the smartest person in the world, but if you have low EQ, it can be very damaging. What we're going to talk about is the importance of having high emotional intelligence, especially through adverse and ambiguous times. So there's three core attributes associated with emotional intelligence. The first being intrapersonal skills. How self-aware are you and knowledgeable are you about your behavior, about your communication style, about those things that motivate and demotivate you, how you make decisions, and how you deal with things such as change, risk, adversity, and conflict and problem solving. Because the more aware and astute you are of those attributes, the more effective you are going to be as a human being, the more you're going to be able to self-manage through times, unprecedented times like we're going through now. So I not only want to stress the importance of self-knowledge and self-awareness, but we're going to tie some personal behavior assessment work around this to help you connect the dots between possibly your style and how you can raise your emotional intelligence, and once again, help you become stronger and others as you're going through, again, these times. So intrapersonal skills is the first element of high emotional intelligence. Grow your intrapersonal awareness. The second part is, how astute are you with engaging, communicating, and interacting with others? Are you able to communicate well, lead others? Do you understand those people that are working for you or your customers? Do you know their motivators, and how could you best get the best out of the people you're engaging with, whether they're part of your staff, whether you're customers? And then do you have the ability to coach, train, influence, again, collaborate with others? Those people who are aware that other people are different than them and they might have to adapt their approach, or understand that people may deal with things differently than you do, you're going to be able to get the best out of them as well too. And once again, during these times, if you're self-aware in a positive way, if you know the motivators and understand those people you're leading, engaging with, collaborating with as customers, you're going to be able to build your resilience, your perseverance, and decision-making capability during times of adversity, during when we're hitting obstacles. You're going to be able to better effectively lead during change, ambiguity. You're going to be able to better problem solve and resolve conflict during these crazy times. So the most important factor for today is this: I want to provide you with some insights and skills to raise your emotional intelligence so you're optimizing at your full potential at any time, but especially when we're going through unprecedented times like we are now. So let's get into something brain functionality and the importance of emotional intelligence and how we function under adverse or ambiguous times. I want to start off with a quote, but this quote ties to rational thinking and staying calm. Is not just a phrase. I'm sure a lot of you are hearing people say, just be cool, be calm, be patient, and it may even irritate you when they say that. But there's really an important factor behind this. It's not just a phrase. There's science behind the importance of being rational during these times, and there's brain functionality information that support this. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about now. Before that, I want to really hit a quote that resonated with me, and I hope it does the same with you regarding the importance of rational thinking in the face of obstacles. And this is by a gentleman named Hans Margolis, and it goes something like this: only in quiet waters do things mirror themselves undistorted. Only in a quiet mind is an adequate perception of the world seen. So once again, it's saying we need to be calm. If we want to handle adversity, we want to handle ambiguity, if we want to handle change, we have to think calmly. We have to see things clearly. Otherwise, it can be very harmful to our decision making or problem solving or things of that nature. So what I want to talk to you regarding brain functionality next is how our brain functions under adverse situations. And we're going to talk about two important parts of our brain. The first being our limbic system. Our limbic system, also known as our emotional brain, is what we're born with. It's also called our reptilian brain. It's what we're born with, and it doesn't evolve through time and experience. It stays the same. When we're in our limbic state of mind, our limbic brain, when adversity strikes, our adrenaline starts rushing, and our response is going to be emotional: freeze, fight, or flight, or some combination of those. Now, this bode well when we were cavemen and women. When a dinosaur roared, we got frightened and we knew to run away. When we were babies, when we were hungry, we cried so our parents would feed us. That bode well when we were children and cavemen and women, but we're not babies anymore, and we're out of the prehistoric times. So the limbic system, although many emotions such as love are very positive emotions to experience, what I'm talking about is the negative side of these emotions when we're in an adverse, unprecedented, ambiguous times like now. Obviously, you could tell that the need to make a decision, to solve a problem or think out of the box will not be optimized when we're in this emotional state of freeze, fight, or flight. We may make a bad decision. We may make a bad choice. And that's why it's important to not be in this mindset. The other part of our brain that I want to talk about is our cortex brain, or it ties into cortex thinking, also known as our rational brain, and that's where reason and logic lie. Our cortex does evolve through time. It evolves through experience, both good and especially bad. It evolves through our learning, such as our schooling, our higher education. Evolves through training and development, reading. Anything in our lives provides the opportunity to build our cortex muscle, so to speak. And when we're functioning in the cortex, that's where we can formulate plans. That's where we can think logically and rationally. We can develop lessons through learnings and experience. And that's where we realize we have options to solve a problem. We don't have to fall back into an emotional state of mind. So as you can imagine, when adversity strikes, you want to respond rationally, not emotionally. You want to respond in that cortex part of your brain, because it's then when you're going to be able to successfully face, overcome, and learn from obstacles and make wiser decisions solve problems, think clearly, and find solutions where you may not have found them or seen them before. So of the utmost importance as we're going through these times, be rational, function in that cortex part of the brain. We're going to talk more about that later. Before I go on, though, I want to state that I learned all this brain functionality insights from one of my martial arts coaches. I'm a Muay Thai practitioner. That's a form of Thai kickboxing. And my instructor was named Eric Parker. Eric Parker is an interesting individual. Eric Parker was a former Indianapolis police officer, drug SWAT team leader, canine handler. He was a certified tactical trainer and munitions trainer, a deadly weapons trainer. So he was trained in all these important things you need to be a SWAT team leader. He was also an undefeated kickboxer at 13-0, and now he's a private banker for Morgan Stanley. Quite an interesting character. But he taught me about this brain functionality, the importance of it, not just in dealing with adversity on a daily basis, but it is important in many times. It could be life-sustaining. As Eric Parker not only talked the talk, he walked the walk. At one time in his career as a SWAT team leader, he was leading a drug raid with a shotgun. As they broke down the door, the officers he was leading enter the house. He's immediately shot in the head. He had a helmet on, thank goodness, and shot in his shooting arm, his right arm, and it flayed his arm. So he lost all use to it. He goes down on the ground. And because he stayed in that calm, cool state and fell back on all the training he learned and taught others, he was able to save his own life by using his non-shooting left hand. He used his pistol with that hand and was able to reload that pistol 3 times with his non-shooting hand, and basically stated that because he fell back on his training, because he was functioning in that rational part of the brain, it literally saved his life. So it's an important factor. It's not just, again, a flippant comment. It could be life-sustaining. It could be decision-making, empowering to stay in that cortex part of our brain. In fact, Eric Parker has a great quote that states that 33% of police officers killed in the line of duty by felonious assault did nothing to prevent their own death. In fact, they witnessed it. Why didn't they respond? Because they were stuck in that emotional limbic part of their brain. They felt they were out of options. So they functioned, they forgot their training, they forgot how to think rationally. They were either froze, they were in freeze, fight, or flight mode, which was not productive. And in this instance, it cost them their lives. So again, the importance of thinking rational, a rational state of mind is of the utmost importance, especially during adversity or ambiguous or unprecedented times like now. On the flip side, someone who did exercise cortex or rational thinking during one of the most traumatic times in this nation's history was Rudolph Giuliani, who was mayor of New York during 9/11. I lived there, so I was able to witness his leadership firsthand. And Rudy Giuliani had a great quote that went something like this: "My father used to say to me, whenever you get into a jam, whenever you get into a crisis or an emergency, become the calmest person in the room, and you'll be able to figure a way out of it." Essentially, his dad, in layman's terms, was stating when adversity strikes, stay in the cortex. Don't go into that limbic state of mind. And thank goodness his father taught him that, because it helped him lead us through a very traumatic time. So I hope that helps you understand the importance of being calm, cool, and rational as we're going through this. I know it's not easy. I know it's tough. I'm going through this myself. But the last thing we need to do is make decisions when we're not thinking at our highest level, to make decisions when we're angry, or to make decisions when we're shut down and not thinking clearly could be very harmful to ourselves, our business, and those people we're engaging with. So of the utmost importance, stay calm, cool, collected. That also ties to that emotional intelligence side as well, too. So now I'm going to shift gears a little bit. We're going to go back into helping you understand maybe a little bit about yourself and those people you engage with from the intrapersonal skill side, understanding yourself and interpersonal skills, understanding those people you interact and engage with, so you can better lead or manage through or collaborate during adverse times. And with that said, I'm going to use a behavioral tool some of you may be very familiar with called DISC. It's a behavioral model that helps people understand 4 base behavior styles. So as we're going, you can use Myers-Briggs, social styles. It doesn't really matter. I just use DISC the most often, and I think it's the easiest to learn. But the point is, it's an assessment that can help you really understand yourself so you can better self-manage, raise that emotional intelligence for yourself to help you better function and be successful during adverse times. Recognize the styles of others whom you may be leading, who you may be engaging with, collaborating with, so you can get the best out of them. And once again, raise your interpersonal EQ side as well, too. So bear with me as I go into the behavioral attributes of these 4 styles. As I go through these, I want you to think about yourself and those people you may be engaging with, so it can give you insights to behavior and how behavior may be affected by what's happening now. Then after that, we're going to connect the dots between these behavior styles, emotional intelligence, and this brain functionality piece. So it's a good opportunity to really connect the dots between you as a person and how you can increase your effectiveness as we're going through adverse times. So I just want to kick off with 2 quotes by great leaders, 2 great leaders who, especially the first one, who faced great obstacles, but because they had high emotional intelligence, they were able to optimize their success under oftentimes dire or very difficult situations. The first being Major Dick Winters, the leader of the Band of Brothers, which was a group of Army, I think they were Army paratroopers who were part of some of the most important missions during World War II, and oftentimes Easy Company, which Dick Winters led, the Band of Brothers, were very influential in many ways defeating Nazi Germany. And one of the reasons why was because Dick Winters' leadership. He was very self-aware in a good way, had high intrapersonal skills, had high interpersonal skills, and that helped him become a successful leader. His quote goes something like this: sometimes leadership is a matter of adjusting to the individual, and you do this every day. You don't have just one way of treating people. You adjust yourself to who you're talking to. I might talk to one person one way, someone else another. So he had enough self-awareness to know his leadership style and know those people he was leading in combat to best motivate them, to put them in maybe precarious situations and get the best out of them. So he had high emotional intelligence, and that helped him function at an optimal level during some really dire times. Another great leader, football coach Vince Lombardi, one of the greatest motivators and leaders ever in the world of sports, basically stated that football is a motivation business. And on my teams, I put on most of the motivation. The point is that I've got to learn 40 different ways to lead and motivate and communicate with 40 different men. So he knew the hot buttons to push on his different players to get the best out of them and help them succeed under difficult times in a sporting event as well, too. So I just want to give you those 2 quotes to help you understand a little bit from a personalized perspective what it means to have strong intrapersonal skills and interpersonal skills as we go through these times together. And with that said, I'm going to introduce you to some pieces of the 4 base DISC behavior styles to help you get little insights into your behavior and those people you're engaging with to help become more successful as we're going, again, through these crazy times. So DISC is an acronym for 4 behavior styles. D stands for dominance, I stands for influence, S stands for steadiness, C stands for compliance. I'm going to help you understand the attributes associated with these so you can connect the dots between possibly your behavior style and those people on your staff that you're leading, those customers, and even people in your personal life, your children, your teenagers, and your significant other spouse as well, too. So just words that describe each style. Dominant style people are very ambitious, forceful, direct, decisive, very independent, very challenging, very type A personalities. They like winning. They like change. And people who are of the dominant style may be really frustrated now because they don't know what to do. There's so many things changing and rules and whatnot, and that it could be very frustrating to them going through these adverse times now because they want to act, they want to make a change, they're tired of being cooped up. Influencer styles are very expressive, enthusiastic, demonstrative, talkative, outgoing, very extroverted people. Influencer styles can be very frustrated by what's going on now because we're quarantined. It's hard to engage with my team when I'm stuck in my home office. It's hard to engage with customers when I'm using the phone. So this could be a difficult time for influencer styles. I want you to realize before I go any further, there's no right or wrong style. That's the first thing I want to preface here. Each style has its plus side, each style has its minus side. I just want you to be aware of these 4 styles so you can better self-manage and lead others. And I'm just speaking of several of the styles now as to how they may be responding in the negative as we're going through this pandemic. Steadiness styles are very methodical, systematic, reliable, very relaxed, very modest. They are a little bit more on the introverted side, and they are big collaborators, highly loyal people. And lastly, the compliance style are very analytic people, very conservative, contemplative, careful, very, very analytical folks. They don't like making mistakes. Motivation, change, and risk-taking. Dominant styles are motivated by challenges, authority, being able to take the bull by the horn, so to speak. They love change, and they're very high risk takers. So they like thinking out of the box. They like new ideas. They like change. And their decision-making is typically quick and based off of facts. Influencer styles are motivated by their image. They like to be well thought of. They like to look good. Their change and risk factor and decision-making is going to be dependent upon the effects to people or others. So they will be more willing to make a change, take a risk, or make a faster decision if it benefits others. If it doesn't benefit others, it can be very difficult. So as a leader, as a business owner, if you're having to let staff go or furlough staff, this can be very difficult for you, and it can create stress. So just food for thought regarding what we're going through now and that influencer style. Steadiness styles are motivated by peace and stability. So obviously you can imagine times like this, instability can be very frustrating for a steadiness style. Regarding change and risk-taking, they need time to prepare, to think it through, and they're fairly slow risk takers. And lastly, the compliance style, they're motivated by excellence and quality. They don't like making mistakes. They're concerned about change and risk-taking, and they're very slow decision makers. So as you think about change and risk-taking or decision-making, which is all affecting us every day, but especially now, as you go clockwise around this circle from D, I, S, and C, the willingness to make a change and take a risk diminishes as you go clockwise. So dominant styles and influencers are more willing to make a change and take a risk. S's and C's less so much, less willing to do so, I should say. Regarding decision making, the same thing. As you go clockwise around this circle, the speed at which these styles make a decision diminishes as you go clockwise. D's and I's will be more willing to make quick decisions, S's and C's a little less so. The reason I'm sharing this is to help you understand yourself, your motivators, and how you deal with change, risk, and decision makers we're going through these times. So you can better function and understand how to, again, make better decisions, deal with these changing times more effectively, and lead those others as well, too. Recognizing the 4 styles, dominant styles are assertive, no nonsense, very action-oriented, very blunt, very decisive. Influencers are very enthusiastic. They have a positive outlook, very innovative, very friendly, very considerate. Steadiness styles are very agreeable. They use a softer approach, very methodical, very patient listener, very methodical, and oftentimes reluctant to commit. And compliance styles move at a much slower pace, very logical in their demeanor, very stoic in their demeanor as well, too, very detail-oriented, and will show little emotion. And then lastly, what drives each style? So this kind of ties to the motivators of each style. So this is myself. These are things I know that drive me as a particular style. Or if I'm leading others on my team, my staff, or customers, this is helpful to know. So if I'm dealing with someone who's a high D, being direct, using bullet points, summarizing your ideas is of the utmost importance. Give them cutting edge ideas and show them how they can win during these crazy, unprecedented times. Influencer styles, show them the benefits to people, to others. Be a little bit more enthusiastic despite what's happening now. Keep a high, positive, motivating attitude. Don't overwhelm with a lot of data and build personal relationships with them. Steadiness styles build trust, slow your pace, be collaborative, a team environment, and give them time to think things through the best you can, because that's how they like making decisions. And lastly, the compliance style, focus on quality, accuracy, dependability. Give them reasons to make a change, or reasons you're recommending they do what they do, because they're going to make their decisions off of facts, logic, and reason, and data oftentimes to do so. So they'll make good decisions based off of sound facts. So uncertainty can be very difficult for them and the steadiness style. So good for you to know for yourself, and good for you to know those other people you're engaging with. Now let's step away from that. Let's combine this whole theory on brain functionality and these 4 DISC behavior styles, so you can connect the dots between how you might be functioning under these difficult times, or others, how they're functioning, so you can better self-manage and keep that calm, cool, clear, rational head through any adverse or ambiguous or uncomfortable times, so to speak. So to kick off, another great quote by Viktor Frankl, it goes like this: between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So the whole point of this is as we're going through these times, we do not need to respond in a negative, difficult, emotional frame of mind. I know it's not easy at times. I know it can be difficult. But you've got to work through this and realize that emotion, strong emotions, freeze, fight, or flight, frustration is not going to be helpful as we're going through this together. So let's connect the dots here and speak to something I call emotional triggers and responses. Emotional triggers are adverse situations or events like we're going through now, or people that can cause an emotional response, such as freeze, fight, or flight. Our emotional response is going to be exactly, what is that response? Is it freeze, fight, or flight, or some combination of those 3? Typically, rule of thumb emotions tied to the 4 DISC styles are like this. Dominant styles are fighters, influencer styles are flighters, steadiness styles are freezers, and compliance styles are freezer fighters. Keep in mind, we're not solely one DISC style, D or I or S or C. We're typically blends of different styles. I'm a blended high S steadiness style with a lot of high D dominant style. So these emotions and the DISC styles tie perfectly for me. If I don't watch it, if I'm triggered into a negative response, I'm a freezer, meaning I might shut down. I internalize things. I can't think clearly. Then I might respond as a D, as my D, with fight. So I shut down, then I might fight. As you can imagine, that's not a productive and positive place to be. So my knowledge of connecting the dots between my styles, my triggers and responses has in turn better helped me manage myself through adverse, ambiguous, and difficult times, because I'm much more aware of events or situations or people that can set me in a negative state of mind and what it feels like, freeze and fight. So this is raising that emotional and intelligence side. I've raised my EQ because I'm more aware of how I function under difficult times. So the key takeaway from this page is this: to effectively deal with adversity, we must know our triggers and responses to ensure a rational, reasoned response versus an emotional one. Possibly the most important takeaway of this whole topic is this: when adversity strikes, when ambiguity strikes, when uncertainty strikes, you must prevent, as it says there in red, you must prevent the transfer of authority from the cortex to the limbic system. Or in other words, you must stay in that rational state of mind. Don't fall into that negative emotional state of mind. This is important because when we fall into that emotional state of freeze, fight, or flight, we are no longer productive. In addition, we can't get out of that emotional state right away. It's going to take some time, and that time is going to be dependent on the person and the situation. It could take minutes, it could take hours, it could take days. So the point of this is you don't want to fall into that state because you may not get out of that emotional state right away. So you don't want to make bad decisions. You don't want to say something you're going to regret. You don't want to make a decision without being able to see options. So it's imperative to prevent the transfer of authority from your rational state of mind to that emotional one. That's key that I want you to take away from today. So let's dig into this a little bit deeper, looking at the 4 DISC behavior styles and things that may be an emotional trigger for each style and how that may manifest in an emotional state. So things that can, if you're a dominant style, if you're leading or engaging with a dominant style, here's some things that can trigger them into that emotional, non-productive limbic state. Losing, moving too slow of a pace or not changing fast enough, wasting their time, losing control, not being challenged. How that may manifest in an emotional state, remember, they're fighters. This may manifest in being angry, getting a short fuse, becoming impatient, taking on too much. You guys aren't moving fast enough. I'll just do it myself. That's not a productive place to be. Moving too fast, being too risky because you're not thinking things through, and being obstinate or stubborn. As you can imagine, those are not productive places to be if you are a dominant style or you're leading a dominant style. So hopefully this helps you become more astute for yourself and those you're leading so you can better manage, lead through these times. Influencer styles, things that may set them at an emotional state is conflict, a harmed image, being controlled, not enough people interaction, like now, being quarantined, too much information hitting them at once. How that may manifest in emotional responses, remember, they're flighters. They do not really want to deal with things head on because they'll run away from it in various ways. Those various ways may be they become unrealistic, don't want to deal with the problem at hand, become overly optimistic, act like the problem's not there, become a poor planner, become overwhelmed, and become overly trusting. Steadiness, as you can imagine, those aren't productive places to be. Steadiness styles, things that may trigger them into that emotional state is moving too quickly, moving too fast, not giving them time to think things through, not being able to collaborate, having too much on the plate, not being able to prioritize are keys for them. I know that I could speak for myself, but those are things that can set me off. Knowledge of that has helped me manage through it. Emotional responsiveness is they're freezers, so that may manifest in shutting down, moving at a snail's pace, becoming overly sensitive, becoming passive, seek security, and not being able to think out of the box. Again, not productive places to be, especially under what we're going through now. And lastly, the compliance styles. Things that may be triggers for them is moving too quickly, rapid change, leaving too little time to analyze things, insufficient data, making mistakes, and being overly personalized with them can set them in that limbic state. And how that may manifest, remember, they're freezers and fighters. They may become overly fearful. They may overanalyze and be stuck with analysis paralysis. They may be stagnant. They may get angry, and they may be overly critical and seek perfection. So as you can see, all these triggers do happen in our world, many of which are happening now. And those responses happen because of that if that emotional trigger is not managed or recognized sufficiently. Once again, self-knowledge, knowledge those people with whom you're engaging with will better help you manage through those emotional triggers and responses so you prevent that transfer of authority from that cortex to that limbic state of mind, or from the rational to the emotional state of mind. So ultimately, the more we know about ourselves and others, the better we will be at dealing with workplace adverse situations in a productive, proactive manner. So going on from here, what are some action steps? What are things we can do in creating options as we're going through these times to ensure that we don't fall into an emotional state of freeze, fight, or flight? These are some helpful tips. So when adversity strikes, 2 keys, I'll reiterate again. You must prevent the transfer of authority from our cortex or our rational brain to the limbic or emotional side, because once again, when we're in that limbic state of mind, we're no longer productive. So if I'm angry, if I'm leading a company and I'm angry, I'm not productive. If I'm putting my other staff or employees or my customers in an anger mode or a freeze mode or a flight mode, they are no longer productive. Hence, we're both no longer productive, and we're not going to be operating at full capacity from a mindset, mental perspective. So that's the key. Also realize you have options. You can respond rationally, not emotionally. Okay, so the thing to help us identify those options is what I call a reservoir of options. What are those things at our disposal that we can use to proactively address adversity and once again stay in that rational, positive state of mind? So there's 4 things I want to cover that I consider our reservoir of options, things we can reach out to so we can respond in a good manner. So the first thing is, it ties very much into that Abraham Lincoln quote I started off with earlier in this session. It's basically initiating a positive perception of adversity. And again, listen, this is a pandemic serious. What we're going through is very unprecedented. So I don't want this to sound, again, flippant or unimportant, but it's very important to keep a positive perception about what's happening now, because negativity, negative emotions, unproductive emotions aren't going to help us. So the key is to keep that positive mindset and review our perception as we're going through this. And 2 parts of this, very much what I said about the Abraham Lincoln quote, is accept that adversity is going to happen, even pandemics, things like this. The acceptance that adversity is going to happen, that it's part of life, in turn helps us to not be, surprised when it does. Because when we're surprised when it does, it ties into that limbic or that emotional state. Oh my goodness, adversity striking, or this is happening, and could send you in that panic mode or that shutdown mode, which isn't productive. So the first piece is to realize adversity is a part of life. Accept that is going to happen. And the second part of that is acknowledging that it's meant to be in our lives to help us grow, transform, and evolve. And how can I solve the problems now? How can I make good decisions despite all this craziness going on, despite this uncertainty going on? So just try your utmost, and those people on your staff or in your life, keep them with that positive frame of mind as we're going through this. It's very important. Next is access any past learnings and experiences, both good and especially bad. Most likely, I can't say we've been through a pandemic before, we've not, but there's probably similar type situations that created disruption in your life or created disruption in your business. And how did you resolve that, or how did you deal with that in the past? Either successfully, you've done it before, you can succeed again, or if you weren't so successful in dealing with it again, reference back to that and ask yourself, what could you have done differently last time that will help me this time? I'm actually going to speak to this on the next slide after this slide, something called a situational debrief, which will help you in this matter. Next is leverage any personal and professional development skills, any skill set you've learned in the past to help you in solving problems, becoming a better leader, communicating effectively, any skills or tools you can use to help you become stronger, or pass on those skills to your team, to your staff members, things of that nature. Give them a foundation and help them keep a clear head as we're going through these all that's happening to us now. And then the last thing, identify and leverage, I should say, any support mechanisms or systems you may have at your disposal. First and foremost, who are people in your life? A trusted people, I should say, a mentor, a confidant, a coach, someone you can lean on So you're not going at this alone. You can bounce ideas with, who can see things from another perspective. So hire a coach or find a mentor or find someone, a confidant you can trust and lean on during these times, so you're not going at it alone. They can help keep you in that cortex rational state of mind, and also bounce ideas and see things maybe a little more clearer that you weren't able to see. Fall back on any skills, tips, insights like you're learning today to help sustain you through these times as well too. So once again, the bottom line is we're going through this now, and even after this passes down the road, adversity is going to strike again. Uncertainty is going to strike again. Unprecedented things are going to happen again. Remember, stay in that calm, cool, rational state, and you're going to be able to find solutions. You're going to be able to find your way out of it and become stronger now than you were before. So I want to go over in that third, was the second bullet point down, past experiences, leveraging past experiences. I want to talk about a tool. This can be very helpful for you, either for your own effectively functioning through these times, or if you're coaching, leading some of your staff. It's called a situational debrief. And it has 4 basic steps: capture the situation, review the outcomes, define key learnings, and identify next steps or plan of action. Basically what this is if you have gone through an adverse situation, a situation that didn't go in your favor, you believe you failed or you didn't handle something right, step away from that moment and get yourself into a rational, cool state of mind and revisit that moment. So essentially what you're doing is going to rewire your brain to use that experience that wasn't so positive and to see it in a positive light to prepare you for such future type events. So let's say I had a situation in the past, an adverse situation that I didn't think I handled the best I could. I'm going to capture that situation in either writing or just through a mental process. I'm just going to try to relive that situation in a positive frame of mind. Then I'm going to review outcomes of things that happened during that time, both good, bad, or indifferent. So I'm figuring out what happened. What did I lose? What didn't go right? So on and so forth. Then define key learnings. What lessons did I learn from this situation? And then lastly, identify recommended next steps, or what you would do differently now. Once again, what that does is hardwire a past situation that you didn't feel went right, or you may have looked at as being a failure situation, and you're revisiting in a rational state of mind so you can find solutions, and once again, it can prepare you for the future. You can only do the situational debrief after you're out of the emotion of things. When I'm angry, when I'm shut down, I'm not going to be able to see clearly, and I'm not going to be able to learn a lesson. Step back from the situation, revisit in a positive frame of mind. You can help this use the same process with your employees too. If an employee had a bad customer interaction or a bad colleague interaction, once the emotion is out of it, you can revisit this situation with them and use this process as a coaching tool for them to help them see and find answers they didn't previously see before. So it's really a good debrief process to help you see what you consider failures or unproductive results in a new productive light. Once again, preparing you for the future. And you can help others do that as well too, colleagues, people you're leading, even family type situations. The whole point of this situational debrief is about creating future options that I don't have to respond the way I did before. I can do something different, and it's going to help me be more successful in the future. So the bottom line is the situational debrief provides a tool, a method for self-reflection and for others to teach, coach, learn, and connect the dots between previous adverse or disappointment type situations into more of a successful one. So in essence, you're learning a valuable lesson from things that didn't go your way in the past that can prepare you for the future. Some of you may be going through with this pandemic some things now that you wish you didn't say or wish you didn't do. Revisit them now. It's not too late. Go through them now. Just make sure the emotion's gone. Revisit it for future or current success. So some helpful tools and insights that Scott had mentioned, I'm going to provide gratis to you on the SBAM website is a copy or the e-version of my book, In Defense of Adversity, Turning Your Toughest Challenges into Your Greatest Success. A lot of the content we're talking about today is covered in the book. And the book is, again, hopefully you're not like this webinar is not fluff. It's based off of really some strong pillars. 4 pillars from my book are as follows. 1, I interviewed over 60 highly successful people on how they viewed adversity. And I have just a plethora of wonderful information, insights, motivation, and inspiration that you can read in this book. And I'm also going to give you another little free piece of information based on that too, I'll talk about next. Secondly, it's based off the brain functionality, what I mentioned, both the rational and emotional thinking, what the importance of that. We're going to tie in a little bit more of the DISC insights and how that ties into the emotional triggers and responses and how you can better self-manage. And also ties in a lot of my experience, both in my corporate life and as a business owner. So it's really built on strong pillars. So that will be freely accessible to you on the SBAM site. And I'm also going to provide a PDF file, something called Sage Insights Report, Wisdom, Inspiration for Adverse and Ambiguous Times. And it's basically all the content that I collected from the Sage Insights interviews that I just mentioned a little bit ago. So as I said, I interviewed over 60 highly successful people. I could not put all their information in my book. It was just too much, and it was great information. What I'm going to supply to you is that PDF file through the SBAM site to help you just read what they placed in this interview, in these surveys. It's just really a goldmine of information. And it really answers, these 60 people answered the following questions: how they viewed adversity, how they learned from adversity, how have they leveraged adversity to their advantage, how did they remain positive during adverse times, and who are people they looked up to and inspired during adverse times. There's over 350 to 400 entries of just pure wisdom that I want to share with you as well too. So there's a few free nuggets here as part of this webinar to help you and others. Feel free to share this information with others to help us, get through this craziness and come out of it more successful than we were before. And once again, set the stage for the future of our business and our personal and professional lives. Get that out, get that started on a really positive note. And in closing, I want to share one of my favorite quotes of all time. I think it really speaks to us as human beings and the importance of adversity in our lives to help us grow, transform, and evolve into the people we were meant to become, whether it's our personal, becoming the best person I can be, the best leader, the best business man or woman, the best entrepreneur. Adversity has a way of really helping draw that out in us if we let it, if we keep that positive perception. And the quote is basically, it's an ancient proverb that goes, the gem cannot be perfected without friction, nor can man be perfected without trials. So as most of you probably know, a diamond becomes a diamond. It was first a piece of coal that ultimately became a diamond because years of pressure. The earth, the pressure of the earth converted that into this beautiful diamond. And I think that's a great metaphor for our lives. And if we can let this craziness, this pandemic thing, be leveraged for a positive outcome, or look at this situation as what can we learn, grow, and transform from this, we're going to come out of this thing, once again, better than we were coming into that. So I thought it was a good way to close this out, this quote, kind of tie a Mother Nature metaphor with what's happening with us now as well too. Again, I know it's not easy. I'm going through this as well too, so you're not alone. I'm trying not only just talk the talk, but walk the walk with you as well too, because all of this has helped me during these times as well too. So I want to thank you for the time. It's helped me, and I'm grateful to have discussed this webinar with you, and I hope it helps. Feel free to ask any questions on the SBAM site, as Scott said earlier. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. And in closing, I'm sharing my information. We will share this deck with Scott and the team as well too, so you can have a copy of this deck with my information on here. Feel free to pick up the phone, give me an email, give me a call, if you have any questions or comments on anything we talked about, I'm happy to help. I'm a consultant for SBAM. I'm happy to be of service to you and help you take these learnings today to, again, not only help you survive these times, but thrive in them. And same thing for the future as well, too, once we're all through this. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you found it insightful, gained some wisdom, gained some skills to help you as we're going through this. And once again, don't ever hesitate to reach out to me. Have a great day. Thank you.
Steve, thank you so much. And again, we will have this information on our website, which is sbam.org. And we will send out the ebook and as well as the deck. Don't hesitate to call with any questions. Thank you so much, Steve. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you.